Starfruit, an amazing Plants vs. Zombies plant. This plant is great for both casuals and speedrunners. Even though they are good for different reasons, this plant is consistently one of the best single defense plants in Plants vs. Zombies. Starfruit can be someone's most powerful asset even when they are using it just by itself. In speedruns, Starfruit is not only viable, but faster than some strategies that we've come up with. But that wasn't always the case. In fact, Starfruit was once underrated in PvZ speedrunning, being mildly useful for category extensions like Shopless, and not used anywhere else, really. Hi, my name is Sasquatch. I'm a PvZ speedrunner, and this is the story of how Starfruit changed PvZ speedrunning. First, I have to talk about Starfruit itself, and give you some context as to what Starfruit is. Starfruit costs 125 sun and fires 5 projectiles in different directions. 2 of them are in forward diagonals, 1 of them is backwards like Split Pea, and 2 more are on both the top and bottom respectively. This means that Starfruit shoots 5 stars for the price of an inflated pea shooter. And if you ask me, it sounds like a pretty good deal, except you might notice one thing. This plant shoots really weirdly. So this is why a lot of people write Starfruit off most of the time. In fact, it would probably be the biggest skill gap between using something like Repeater and using something like Starfruit. Whereas Pea Shooter and Repeater shoot their targets directly, Starfruit has to be offset a little bit. Because it doesn't shoot where you really expect it to, the plant is often misused and can be tossed away as an unreliable plant. At a glance, Starfruit can be both really good and really bad at the same time. It's quite cheap and very useful when it's used in mass, but aside from that, there isn't much to it. Well, I did say at a glance. Now we're gonna jump into a little bit of a speedrunning history lesson. And this is where the story of Starfruit begins. But before we jump into Starfruit directly, we're gonna jump into what there was before Starfruit. Before Starfruit, there were always 2 particularly awkward levels in Plants vs. Zombies any percent. There have always been awkward levels, but 2 of them in particular were awkward to no end. These 2 levels were 5-2 and 5-3. Both of them are 2 flag levels at the start of Roof. The position is what makes these levels awkward. They are after Fog, which does mean that we have a lot of instas, but they're also in Roof, which means that we have to use flower pots. That also means that we can't just use the lawn like we can in Fog and Pool. But that wasn't really that big of a problem. No, the actual problem was, what strat do we use? Well, a lot of strategies came to mind, but Repeater and Torchwood is what several runners settled down with. However, this strat was still pretty awkward. These levels are only 2 flags long, and the process for getting Torchwoods down was never smooth. Oftentimes, we wouldn't have enough flower pots to use enough instas to go faster. A lot of runners caught on to the fact that Torchwoods were too expensive and too slow, and eventually Torchwood kind of got dropped out of the mix. We'd end up foregoing Torchwoods to plant more instants to be faster, which means that Torchwood was a dead slot, and runners would altogether end up dropping the plant in favor of Jalapeno. Jalapeno ended up being faster than Torchwood, so there was a small solution. That's cool and all, but putting down all those repeaters is still pretty expensive, and requires a large number of sunflowers. 1 row of repeaters would be 1,000 sun, plus the price of flower pots. On top of that, you still need to afford chompers, squash, cherry bomb, potato mine, and jalapeno, and flower pots for all of those too. This strategy was fine, but it was still pretty slow, and even though it was able to get some pretty good times, it wasn't very consistent. It was clunky and awkward, inconsistent, and expensive. Not to mention that it was pretty hard. Even though it all served as a transition into Gloom Shrooms, it stuck out like a sore thumb. Every runner assumed that this was the fastest solution though, so not a lot of research was done. There wasn't any other way to get through these levels. We'd just have to deal with the awkwardness. Wait, someone thinks that Starfruit's a better idea? Surely that's not... On March 26, 2023, Bulbasaur Represent, the current world record holder of PvZ any percent, found a new strategy. This could work to be faster, less awkward, and more consistent than repeaters. While his proposition does come from, questionable origins, his proposition was Starfruits. The strat idea was to replace repeater with Starfruit, plant Starfruits in a more centralized manner, and then use instants all around. Pretty much the same thing as repeater, but instead of using repeater, you use Starfruits. This means that we're taking Starfruit as our only defense plant, Flower Pot for roof, Sunflower because we need sun, and 5 instants for speed. Surely Starfruit can't hold the line alone. Well, actually it can. Given the correct placement and using instants correctly, then you can absolutely use Starfruits to consistently get fast times on 5-2 and 5-3. Finally, these two awkward stages were out of the way. While it is possible, it is still quite challenging, although it is less challenging than repeaters. The issue of flower pots is mostly still there, but Starfruits are cheaper, so we are able to use more sun to deal with it. Not only that, but Starfruit shooting in an unusual manner allows for some flower pots to be saved that wouldn't be able to be saved otherwise. This allows for more column 9 pots, which means more instants, which means faster time. So, with the strategy idea from Bulbasaur, other runners started to join in the fray to input their tests and see their results. And a lot of results from various different runners came out to be less than 5 minutes in very consistent manner. And to add on to all of it, the 5-2 global gold was beaten in IL version. Now, while this was only in IL attempts, this showed the potential for Starfruit. For reference, YMBL-CZA, the world record holder at the time of Starfruit's discovery, had an average of just below 5 minutes with repeaters. Since YMB was the best at these levels by far, it was surprising when we had runners beating those top times in a matter of hours after the strategy was found. This was revolutionary, and it really helped with making these two stages less awkward. Starfruit would even continue being revolutionary in categories other than any percent. In fact, New Game Plus Shopless got revolutionized by Starfruit too, as it became the gold standard as to what Shopless runs should look like. Initially, the picks for these levels were also Torchwood and Repeater, but now with the inclusion of Starfruit, things get a bit more complicated. Starfruit is preferred on 2 flag levels, while Repeater and Torchwood gets more value on 3 flag levels, but this was still revolutionary. In any case, Starfruit was a revolutionary discovery, and it even begged the question, where else would it be viable on? Things like 5-6, 5-8, or even 5-9? Well, it actually ended up doing pretty well on all of those stages as alternatives to Gloomshrooms. We'll talk about that in just a second, but Starfruit changed things for the better, and it made it way faster for 5-2 and 5-3. That's all we really cared about at the moment. Now, Starfruit is regarded as both consistent and fast in the speedrunning community. It is being considered for levels like 5-7 and 5-9 for certain previews of zombies. Some runners were even getting good enough to match Garlic Gloom times in levels like 5-6 and 5-8. And if you don't know, that is quite fast for a non-Gloom strategy. Now, while Starfruits are still not as good as Pumpkin Glooms, they are still a consistent and reasonably fast strategy for roof stages in general. But there is one small piece of tech that got introduced with Starfruits. Remember how I said Starfruits shoot 5 projectiles? Well, there is a situation where we can use all 5. This little tech is something I like to call Starfruit Shotgun. A Starfruit Shotgun is where we plant a Starfruit on top of a zombie. This means that the Starfruit is inside of the zombie's hitbox while it's getting eaten. And when the Starfruit shoots, the projectiles all hit the one zombie. Because the projectiles spawn from the middle of the Starfruit and the zombie is on the Starfruit, all of the stars hit the zombie at once. That means that Starfruit theoretically has the best DPS in Plants vs. Zombies, even better than Gloomshrooms. The problem is that pumpkins don't work super well with this tech because they also have a gimmicky hitbox. So Gloomshrooms end up being faster. Either way, we are always finding ways to save time with Starfruits. Just as a quick comparison, the global golds, or best time in runs, for 5-2 and 5-3 were 4:39, and 444 respectively. That was before Starfruits. At the time of writing, the global golds for 5.2 and 5.3 are vastly different. 5.2 is 431.13, which is a whole 8 seconds faster, and for 5.3, 430.36, which is a whole 14 seconds faster. These are without a doubt Starfruit time saves, and they were achieved in late 2023, the same year that Starfruit was found. I'm excited for what Starfruit will do in the future, and for what new strats people will come up with. But for now, we've got Starfruit, and we've got faster times. So there you have it. That's the story of how Starfruit changed the any % speedrun in Plants vs. Zombies. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I've really enjoyed making these speedrun focused videos, and I hope that you guys are enjoying them. If you are, please hit that like button to support me, and subscribe if you're new to the channel for more content like this. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and have a freaking awesome day.